stored in storage areas. And finally, our response and recovery teams and resources throughout our nation are mobilized, in position, and ready. Now, we have taken these actions because intelligence reporting indicates that while al-Qaeda and those sympathetic to their cause are still a principal threat, the principal threat, Iraqi state agents, Iraqi surrogate groups, other regional extremist organizations, and ad hoc groups or disgruntled individuals may use this time period to conduct terrorist attacks against the United States in our interest, either here or abroad. The increase in the threat level is a signal to law enforcement, government officials at all levels, and representatives of the private sector to implement specific protective measures, just as they have done on 2 previous occasions. In response to the question of individual Americans, what do I do? First and foremost, again, we encourage you to be informed. Some good sources of information to learn what emergency precautions you can take are the ready.gov website. Now, in addition, your support and participation in reporting potential threats or suspicious activities to federal, state, or local law enforcement authorities adds significantly to our defense. Lastly, during this period of heightened alert, there is bound to be misinformation. Don't react to rumors. We will strive to get the facts out as soon as we can. Let me close by saying, your federal government is ready. Professionals at all levels are ready. Those in your states and in your communities and those in the private sector. And because of this very comprehensive, very coordinated effort, America is ready. Thank you very much. Yes?
Can you tell us more about the detentions of asylum seekers? How many do you think will be detained, in how many countries, and how long do you expect them to be?
The detention of asylum seekers is basically predicated on one basic notion. We just want to make sure that those who are seeking asylum, number one, are who they say they are, and 2, are legitimately seeking refuge in our country because of political repression at home, not because they choose to cause us harm or bring destruction to our shores. So, again, the detention will be constructed around that purpose. Yes.
How many nations will they be?
Pardon me?
How many nations are included in that list?
Well, we'll be looking, obviously, scrutinizing all asylum seekers at this time, but there are countries who we believe are supportive of al-Qaeda, or countries where we know there's an al-Qaeda network or other terrorist organizations, and it'll be those countries we're looking at specifically.
Follow up on that. How many people do you know will be affected, and for how long? And if you could elaborate a little bit more on what is the precedent for detaining people for whom we have no specific suspicion that they are terrorists, and why take that extreme act?
Well, this approach has been done in the past. Last year, I think in 2002, given the category of countries we're talking about, those where we know there are known existing terrorist organizations, al-Qaeda and others, I think there were about 600 people that were temporarily detained, and about, I think 60% of them were Iraqis. So again, the purpose behind the temporary detention is fairly straightforward. We want to make absolutely certain during this period of time you are who you say you are, and you're coming to this country that invites people from around the world, that has been open and welcoming to people around the world. But if you're seeking asylum for political purposes, we want to make absolutely certain that that's why you're here. Yeah.
Tom Ridge, the head of the Homeland Security, in a live news conference in Washington. That last question had to do with some increased holding time for people seeking asylum in this country from foreign nations. Ridge announced Liberty Shield, as he called it. He's asking governors to post National Guard and police at what it calls sensitive locations, airports, rail stations, bridges, and around the borders. He asked health organizations to report, quote, unusual diseases, and he asked citizens to try to stay informed, check the Homeland Security website, ready.com, and that he asked citizens to report any suspicious activity to local law enforcement. At the same time, he said, beware of rumors. CBS News correspondent Jim Stewart is in Washington. Jim, unless I'm wrong, I think there's some confusion about what the average citizen is supposed to do when the alert is raised from yellow to orange, the next highest alert, as has happened in the last 24 hours. So let's review. What's the person at home, the regular citizen, supposed to do under these circumstances?
Well, Dan, you might almost call this alert condition orange plus because it's almost red, and they have done this for a purpose. In terms of what the average citizen can do, I don't detect that the FBI or their Homeland Security Department actually expects them to do much except to stay alert, to report anything suspicious, whatever that may mean. What you're seeing here today unfold, though, is the Homeland Security and FBI's version of their own shock and awe tactics, because as soon as hostilities start, you will see 5,000 FBI agents hit the streets and begin conducting 10,000 interviews with Iraqi citizens, Iraqi Americans, people who've recently arrived here. They'll be accompanied by INS agents. There will be some detentions. There will be some people who will be arrested. We're told that their FBI has also asked just recently for 2 more Iraqi diplomats to be expelled. All of this is going to be in a rush of activity that the government will announce as soon as the shooting starts. They only hope that citizens will pay attention and help them as they see best fit. Dan.
Jim Stewart live in our Washington bureau. Stay tuned to this CBS station. With an American-led invasion of Iraq looming, we'll be back on the air immediately with any important update on the situation. And there'll be more on the coming war on your local news and in complete coverage on tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Dan Rather at CBS News World Headquarters in New York. I'll see you as we go.
For news 24 hours a day, go to cbsnews.com. AOL keyword CBS News.
Christopher was killed by friendly.
Some recent intelligence which indicates that on the occasion of a U.S. invasion of Iraq, Al-Qaeda will try and launch a major operation. And that operation probably has been in progress or in process since before the arrest of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Presumably, his arrest will affect Al-Qaeda's plans. He certainly was a major loss to them. But the premise of some of the intelligence sources that I've talked to has been that Al-Qaeda already has people in the U.S. that were preparing to try out something. And we know from, for example, recent documents that Al-Qaeda has been experimenting with 3 forms of cyanide poison, for example. And there is concern that this could be the form of a new attack in the United States.
Okay, many thanks. I appreciate it. Vince Cannistraro, our former director of counterterrorism of the CIA, useful to us in trying to understand just how severe the security threat is at the morning. We'll keep you up to date on this throughout the day. You can always go to abcnews.com to see all of this documentation on that which you've just heard and many of the other provisions after the president's speech last night about the inevitability now of going to war. The president's spokesman did say this morning that even if Saddam Hussein and his 2 sons actually left Iraq, which they have said they are not going to do, the United States would enter the country peacefully, as Mr. Fleischer said, in order to be sure that the regime had absolutely been disarmed. Later, I hope you'll join us on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters in New York.
For continuing coverage of this story, stay with ABC News and abcnews.com. This has been a special report from ABC News.
Just 10, her son Tyler bites her, punches her, kicks her, even says to his mom, "I wish you were dead." Now look at Janet.